Well, let me start by introducing myself. I'm Mark Gilmour. I look after a team that we call Market Incubation Innovation within Colt, and we look at future development work particularly. Now, this presentation is entitled 5G and Immersive Technologies, but in reality, it's a little bit more about business transformation as well, and in particular, the kind of the confluence of technology development plus accelerated demands, I think, to try and create the overall opportunity space. However, I do want to temper expectations. There's going to be no remote surgery in this. There's going to be no fully autonomous virtual driving or any other sort of driving, or indeed any mention, apart from one brief mention maybe, of any sort of full metaverse in this presentation. I'm going to try and ground this a little bit in reality, and indicating where we kind of need to take these technologies and where they have meaning. I'm going to share some insights about what we're seeing and the work that we're engaged in, and addressing some little bit of this space, and also kind of a little bit of what's involved to make this happen, which I hope will help set the tone for you making your own business cases in this. So first of all, very briefly, a glimpse into Colt, and the reason why I wanted to show this is because it colors and influences our perspective on this. So Colt, we'd like to think of ourselves as sitting in the heart of the digital society. Now, this isn't a society that has only just come to fruition. Colt's been in existence for nearly 30 years now, and came about as a result of opening up the market. We started off life in London, but our role really is to connect cloud neutral host data center to all of our enterprise customers, and so we work closely with content service providers, cloud service providers, data center providers, etc., our peers in the telco market, and the wider market, to give access to all sort of business needs in that. You can see from that picture. And we do this through our own network, which is called the Colt IQ network. And I put this slide up just because I think it gives a great visualization of our global market, or our global network, which has global reach, but local expertise. And I think that's really important. So we're able to have both a local and global view in this. And it's this reach, this customer base, that then informs some of our direction and our insights that I'm going to share today. Now, part of the abstract for this presentation was a bit about the impact of the pandemic, and, for example, has it accelerated the use of immersive technologies? Good question. The workplace is definitely changing, and we believe at Colt that it's undergone or is undergoing a permanent shift. And this has, particular impact when I, show you that network picture there, how we're focused in those dense metro environments and connecting those together to the data centers, to the cloud service providers. We've seen a major shift, an acceleration towards public cloud and private cloud initiatives, but also the office is changed, and the workplace then is, it undergone a necessary change because it was forced upon us. But actually, we're seeing that this has produced a long-term permanent shift. Now, I am not suggesting, and you can see from the chart here, that the whole world is going to stay remote working from an office environment. That's not the case. That's not what we believe. It's not what I believe. I know I personally don't want to be sat in my lovely shed, as much as I love it, all of the time. I enjoy that opportunity to meet with people. But even with things going back to whatever that normal will be, and I'll resist the urge to say the new normal, the workplace has definitely changed permanently. And we've done a little bit of work into this to try and understand the impact to that, because obviously it impacts our business. And this also then has an impact into the use of things such as immersive technologies, such as augmented reality, virtual reality, or the dreaded metaverse, for example, if I talk about that. We looked at the traffic mix and things like that, and we had this really interesting insight that we developed from our own work, our own studies here, that's saying that even in a post-pandemic environment of 60% occupancy in an office space, for example, that is going to lead to actually an increase in bandwidth demands purely off the basis of what we're doing right now, this Zoom session, for example, or Teams, and it's driven by video in that, and this idea of the hybrid workforce. Now, this is just in the office environment. What we have seen is that there's been a real driver and a real momentum shift towards what's broadly termed digitalization, but has been going on for a long time. It's really business transformation. It's been talked about, but it's now been accelerated. We've released a couple of videos. The top one was kind of a bit of an infographic video, and encourage you to have a look on YouTube for these. There's a couple of links there to them. The second one that was really interesting that we released last month, which was an insight into Colt House, our headquarters in London, and how it's affecting us in terms of hybrid working and some of the things. Now, this is an early stage of immersive technology because it's not really immersive at all. It's video plus collaboration. We see this being a really important driver. Some of the other things we've seen is the increased use of shared workspaces, which will be mobile and so mobile centric, both in terms of technology, but also in terms of behaviors. And this increased driver towards this digitalization, as I spoke about. I don't really like that term, but it kind of basically an updating of processes and procedures and technologies from all sorts of industry. I'm talking a little bit about office work here, but that actually stretches to all sort of environments. We've heard about healthcare earlier on today, industry, very key area. But it's also driving behaviors in terms of how we think about how we operate and how we work. And so there's been a major shift towards sustainability targets and sustainable working practices. And all of this then is creating an atmosphere that drives perhaps a trend towards the use of immersive technologies in more realistic and natural ways, as opposed to a complete virtual experience. But one of the key things that we have found in all of this is that this driver is towards then, if we want to use cellular in these environments, then we've got to increase and sort out the problem of cellular indoors, in buildings, in both public and private. And so we've been doing a lot of work in the neutral host sort of model and other business models to try and accelerate on that. Okay, I need to move on here. So bringing this topic to the topic of immersive technologies and 5G, the transformation of the working environment, whether that's office space, manufacturing, healthcare, or indeed remote, we see that this is accelerating. But now, as I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, this is a bit more of a presentation about business transformation or evolution. There's no point in making use of an immersive technology such as VR, AR, metaverse, whatever, if there are no real business benefits. For example, we were looking at, we had an early incubation project that we were looking at, which was using digital twin creation, holographic representation, wireless controlled video drones using a combination of private 5G and wireless LAN for preventative maintenance at historic buildings. So examining the savings that can be driven by preventative maintenance sort of use case out of an annual budget, maintenance budget that can sometimes be in the excess of tens of millions of pounds or euros per annum. Now, the challenge we reached in those use cases was that the technology was not quite evolved enough to enable the sort of scale that was needed, the reliance in that, but it's coming. but also the cost points to recognize that. So whilst there was there's a compelling need there, it's combining those costs versus then the business benefit. So the technology still needs to evolve, both on the immersive tech side, but also on the network side. Now, I'm aware that this audience is very well aware of where the current 5G releases are focused on, and then they're not really optimized for the sort of deterministic use cases that will require in some of the lower latency or more, I would say, not necessarily lower latency, but more resilient architectures, which is sometimes where this comparison between cellular versus Wi-Fi or wireless LAN comes into it. But equally, both technologies are improving in their resilience to providing uptime in this. In my opinion, it's about enabling the architecture that can to scale. And I don't necessarily mean scale up, because cellular has always been based in the mobile, the nationwide networks. Rather, I'm talking about scaling down to cover private cellular engagements, indoor engagements at the right cost point. So we're investigating how that can be done. I'm going to show you a little bit about something that we're working on right now. And I think this is what then gives us the great opportunity for 5G and business transformation, which will include immersive technologies. But there won't be much of a 5G plus immersive tech if the industry doesn't really sort out the indoor coverage problem and the indoor coverage solution, whether that be in public or in private environment. And I think this is where private cellular, neutral host models, etc., will make a significant impact to realize this and to enable the business case. So the icons on this slide kind of represent the verticals that are stepping beyond the public mobile broadband use cases. And this is really led by the manufacturing industry 4.0 space. And this is kind of clear because these are large scale, wide campus networks that can utilize a number of individual use cases to make an overall business case. So, for example, it is taking the automated or fully customized production line environment that can be customized to deliver the different widgets, whatever those widgets may be, whether it be a tiny widget up to a full-blown, automobile, or remote table inspection, for example, utilizing digital twin to do virtual inspection of and preventative maintenance in an industrial setting, to video detection, the automated guided vehicles, which to me is the only real application of autonomous vehicles really that we should be focusing on right now, rather than in the whole smart city, wider environment. But also including uses of virtual reality and augmented reality, particularly augmented reality, in training and upskilling the workforce. All of these use cases come together to make a business case for implementing a private 5G or private cellular in a wide campus environment such as manufacturing. Now, but that's not only where these use cases could have validity in a business case. We're seeing more of the AR, VR and immersive technologies being utilized actually a little bit more in kind of like the retail or healthcare or indeed in smart workplace spaces. But there's other applications and use cases that we're seeing: transportation and warehousing, for example. In the smart city space, it's a lot about video and video analytics, for example. A key part, though, of all of this is availability of the whole ecosystem, devices, for example. I'll share a little bit in an example that we've got where device availability is driving what we can do right now. And this is, I think this is key to the piece. But in terms of immersive technology, we're seeing sadly, Annie, it is mainly focused on augmented reality or virtual reality applications at the moment, but also the collaborative workspace with, for example, digital twins, for example, and that. But and we're also the mixture of in-person and virtualized or remote working into that through telepresence and things like that. You know, it's kind of stepped changes towards that. My next slide here just kind of focuses on a couple of areas that we at Colt are delving into right now. And these are around the smart office environment, the smart building, and the smart manufacturing. I'm noting the time I've got here, so I might move a little quicker here to just get into these spaces. But in the smart office and smart building, we've got a proof of concept or a living lab that we've created, which I'll show you a little architecture of on the next page. But really what it's driving at is in order to make the business case in here, you have to combine multiple use cases. So immersive technology on its own, I haven't seen examples yet, apart from not even a few corner cases really with immersive technology, where it makes the business case on its own. It's a combination of AR and VR based collaboration plus video analytics plus neutral host, for example, to provide ubiquitous indoor coverage, plus innovative things like smart cafeteria and things like that, combining then with smart energy and smart building analytics in there, footfall analysis, utilities management, for example. And then if you bring in the smart manufacturing, if it's one location, then you bring all of those use cases in together, which then starts to make the business case work. So if I move us on then and look at what we have looked at doing, I wanted to show you a picture of a private cellular testbed or living lab that we've created in France with a number of partners to test not just the technologies, but really the business cases. And especially, can there be a realistic business case? And as I've kind of already mentioned, our early studies really show that and confirm that it's a combination of the use cases that justify the investment. There are very few corner cases where you can just go with one use case that drives the whole investment. And generally, these tend to be on a larger scale. For example, like the preventative maintenance case I saw, where millions are spent on maintenance each year, and just a 15% saving in that maintenance bill, for example, would justify the cost of building a private cellular environment. But this slide kind of shows that the realization of this private network requires both edge compute, both on-premise, localized on-premise, but also in a network edge environment, and includes a bit of the public cloud in there, maybe even a private cloud, a telco cloud in there, but it is a mixture of that. And it's also not just a 5G story. Actually, in reality at the moment, because of availability of devices, it's more than often than not is a 4G or a wireless LAN or low power WAN technology piece. But it all mixes, it all fits together. You use the right technology for the right application. And I think it's important to note that in that. Now, it was mentioned in the session just before the break that to enable this really, or this domain is a domain of multiple vendors, multiple parties, multiple technologies, multiple domains, and that is exactly true. If I take us through to our own environment here in this particular case, there are 8 partners working together to create this space. From a network point of view, for example, like Colt in that, to the real estate owner, the virtual functions and the services in the private 5G environment, and also the equipment in that, the applications. And then when you bring in individual applications on each level, for example, that brings another party into the mix. And particularly in an open environment, this is using ORAN compliance equipment. So we're looking at different vendors we have different vendors for the radio unit and the compute platforms, the hardware, and the core software, DUs and CUs in that environment. Plus, we also have monitoring solutions, service assurance across there. And then you bring in things such as the end application telepresence robots, for example, or collaboration spaces. All starts to come together. It becomes it really is an environment of multiple parties, and we're requiring orchestration, system integration, and bringing together. There isn't just one size that fits all, although this template works. It's investigating how this scales up and down. Okay, I think that's pretty much it from me. So to kind of give you my summary, from a technology point of view, or both the technology, both from a network and an application developments that are still kind of needed in this to bring the cost down. The preventative maintenance case being one such case. We couldn't realize that due to the technology costs. Demand is developing for this immersive technology. You know, the pandemic has driven behavioral change. We can just look at Facebook's move actually to Meta, you know, which is a rebranding of kind of like Oculus and their whole, you know, to take advantage of that virtual reality space. And, you know, that's a significant move. It will develop that space. I'm a personal believer more in the augmented reality piece, the mixture of both, but that becomes a very challenging space, and it's all happening indoors. So this opportunity space requires indoor coverage solutions, whether that be private cellular, neutral host, et cetera, but also Wi-Fi or wireless LAN plays an important role in that, especially if the use case doesn't require mobility. My final thought, the business case is a simpler one to make in a large scale multi-use case environment, you know, and that's why we're seeing industry kind of lead the pace there. I personally don't believe at the moment that immersive technology use cases on their own will make the business case for a 5G deployment, whether that's private or in a wider space. But as a combination within the two, within the broader scheme, I really see an exciting future for this, and I see this really moving forward. That's me.
Thank you, Mark. Well, just one observation by me. I'm really glad you brought the use case thing up, because I often feel really exasperated reading about use cases that they're kind of almost disembodied from other things. And it's about technology, and actually what we need are applications.
Yeah.
And business cases. So I think that's a really good point. Thank you very much, Mark.